Today, it's hard to imagine Dr. Strangelove as anything other than a comedy. But for the film's creator, it didn't start out that way. In 1961, with principal photography for Lolita completed, Stanley Kubrick was mulling over his next project. At 32 years old, he was already a highly respected director, with his greatest works yet to come. But he was becoming obsessed with a problem that he couldn't solve, reading scores of books on the subject and even making plans to move his young family to Australia in order to escape it. Like many others in the early 1960s, Kubrick was terrified of the daily threat of thermonuclear war. 50,000 feet above him, B-52 bombers were circling the globe 24/7, armed with live nuclear weapons and waiting for a single command to drop the bomb. Little Boy, the atomic bomb which levelled Hiroshima, killing around 140,000 people, was 1,600 times less powerful than the B-41 thermonuclear device aboard one of these B-52s. There were around 12 in the sky at any one time, under the watchful gaze of Strategic Air Command.
There is only world peace where there is power to preserve order among nations. And the retaliatory power of the Strategic Air Command of the United States Air Force is the greatest deterrent to general war there is in the world today.
This American military posturing was a direct response to Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev, who spent the late 1950s boasting that Russia was churning out nuclear missiles like sausages. In response, John F. Kennedy's 1960 election campaign was built around the premise of a missile gap, i.e. that the US were lagging behind the Soviets and needed to boost production. As things escalated, the two countries came dangerously close to an actual nuclear exchange during the 1961 crisis in Berlin.
Well, I was interested in whether or not I was going to get blown up by an H-bomb prior to Lolita. My interest intensified itself sort of concurrently with that. I believe that the Berlin crisis took place during Lolita, and about that time I became keenly interested and started reading up on all the, literature.
Kubrick now knew what his next film had to be about. He just needed the right story. So he reached out to Alistair Buchan, head of the International Institute for Strategic Studies in the UK, and asked if he could recommend any novels about nuclear war. Buchan pointed him to a thriller written by a Welsh former RAF navigator, Peter George. Published in the UK as 2 Hours to Doom under a pen name and released in the US as Red Alert. It had all the ingredients that Kubrick was looking for: a rogue commander, a fatal system flaw, and an unstoppable nuclear launch. Kubrick and his production partner James B. Harris quickly secured the rights and set to work on a gritty adaptation. The film's early working titles included Operation Peacemaker, Edge of Doom, and The Delicate Balance of Terror. But as Kubrick got deeper into the research, consuming dozens of books on military strategy, he kept encountering the same problem. To make this serious thriller believable, he found he had to increasingly leave out the actual facts because they seemed silly.
He had bought the book and was trying to make it straight, and realized that he couldn't, that it was so utterly insane that it couldn't be done that way. And what he did was say that this is insane. I mean, please, who are we kidding?
The more he examined the logic of mutually assured destruction, the more absurd it seemed. Looking at this through the lens of game theory, safety functioned only if there were a credible promise of shared danger.
I pretty much read the spectrum. The thing that struck me most of all about it was that all these things lead to very paradoxical outcomes. And I suppose this was the most thematically obvious thing about Dr. Strangelove, was the paradoxical outcome of any particular line of thought.
He brought in satirist Terry Southern, scrapped the gritty thriller approach, and rebuilt his vision of the apocalypse as a black comedy.